Good.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all our Lead Integrities listeners on this podcast of Integrity of Leadership. This day, we have a very, very special guest who will speak to us of his journey, his wisdom, and on the integrity of leadership and service. Reverend Dr. Ganoune Diop served as the Director of Public Affairs and Religious Liberty in the Director of Public Affairs of Religious Liberty Department at the Seventh-day Adventist Church World Headquarters in Washington, D.C. And as a Secretary General, was the Secretary General until very recently of the International Religious Liberty Association. He's graced with a fascinating combination of gifts and expertise in biblical exegesis and theology, philology, with an emphasis on ancient Near East languages and civilizations, comparative world religions, and world philosophies. He earned a master's degree in philology at the School of Languages and Civilizations of the Ancient Near East in Paris. He earned a diploma in New Testament in-depth studies with a focus on apocalyptic literature at the Catholic University of Paris. He completed postgraduate studies in Semiotics Studies and Applied Linguistics at the University of Paris Sorbonne. And he graduated from Andrews University, Michigan, with a PhD in Old Testament Studies in 1995. At a diplomatic level, Dr. Diop was the permanent representative of the SDA Church at the United Nations in New York and Geneva until 2015. And since 2015, he has held the position of Secretary of the Conference of General Secretaries of the Christian World Communions, an organization that sums over 2 billion Christians. And he's a board member of the Global Christian Forum. Dr. Diop's extensive work has been to foster mutual understanding between Christian faith traditions and other world religions and philosophies. He regularly trains leaders in capacity building in reference to peace, justice, and human rights, effectively the pillars of the United Nations. He was granted a doctorate honoris causa for his work in helping promote a culture of human rights grounded on human dignity. And he's executive editor of Religious Freedom World Report and the executive editor of Fides et Libertas. He was also the recipient of the Thomas Kane Religious Freedom Award from the well-known J. Reuben Clark Law Society in Philadelphia. In 2019, he received the Award of Excellence, Ambassador for Liberty and Peace, Jean Nussbaum and Eleanor Roosevelt at the United Nations in Geneva. In 2020, he was honored with the Charles Eliot Weniger Award for Excellence. Dr. Diop has been a key presenter at the yearly symposium entitled The Role of Religion and Faith-Based Groups in International Affairs. He wasn't just involved as a key presenter in multiple versions of this particular symposium, he was a founding partner in the creation, design, and coordination of this historic symposium that takes place annually at the United Nations. One of his highly valued contributions was entitled Human Dignity as Foundation for Human Rights, a normative overlapping consensus. Key of the issues that he contributes to are justice and peace, the other pillars the international community has identified as necessary for peaceful coexistence. Right from the beginning of his work, Dr. Ganoune Diop has promoted a human rights culture based on universal values, emphasizing the importance of human rights in all aspects of public life, and in particular, the importance of freedom and the involvement of religious communities in the development of social welfare. Through an interdisciplinary approach, he offers a unique perspective on the concept of human rights, bringing together the theological, philosophical, and economic and legal approaches to current challenges confronting the human family. He has lived in 3 continents and is a truly cross-cultural person, determined to respect and honor every person created in the image of God. Clearly, we are in the presence of a great mind, a great soul, and a wonderful spirit, and we're delighted, Reverend Dr. Ganoune Diop, to have you with us for this podcast today, which I know will touch many. One of the things that your biography does not say is how much of a mentor you have been to me and many who have engaged on issues of religion, faith, and integrity within the international system, most specifically in the United Nations. So it gives me deep pleasure to be able to be honored by having you in this conversation today. And if you'll allow me to just pose the first question to you, which is tell us a little bit of the most significant moments of your life's journey that led you to be who you are and to think the way you do. Anything, a story, a couple of stories, a trajectory in the journey of your life that deeply influenced the way you're thinking today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Azakaram, for those gracious words. When you were speaking, I wondered who is she talking about? But anyway, I'm very grateful, and I am. And when I say grateful, I meant, since now over 10 years, that we have been partnering in various fora. Um, I have also benefited from your engagement, your wisdom. Actually, I can just say one word: your humanity. Because this reflects a deep commitment to the whole human family. That's why you were working at the UN, doing what you were doing, and then after that, Religions for Peace. So your impact is also has been enormous and continues to be. Yes, I knew you would belittle what I'm saying right now, but I forgive you. So
I'm not belittling. It's about you. It's your journey. You get to tell us about
yes,
your
but
journey, please.
that's part of my journey. So I needed to do not dismiss that part of my journey. I am very grateful, to really have had the privilege to mingle with you, having encounters and partnership, collaboration, together on many projects, and like the faith-based organizations in international affairs was one of them. So thank you so much for who you are. And I think, yeah, so I am grateful. Talking about the journey, a journey cannot be like limited to one station, so it's a movement. And I am really, the way I would express that is to say I am grateful, and I can say that in this space, for God's providence in leading my life miraculously, like opening opportunities for me to become more human and humane. And I think that this captures many various aspects of my journey, learning to be human.
Mm,
So that speaks of solidarity
mm,
and the foundations for that solidarity, how to justify it, and to look at every human being through the lenses of that solidarity, based on the fact that based on the fact of a shared humanity. And if this means anything, that means also a commitment to the dignity, the respect, the honor due to every person. So that is really a foundational guiding principle for me. I cannot talk about human rights without considering the human aspect, which is at the foundation of the rights. So to be consistent and to really reflect those values, I had to be committed to the well-being, to the dignity, to the honor due to every person. I mean, and this is also connected to actually my understanding of my roots as a human being. It has a spiritual dimension, meaning I am a person of faith. So that is really a key component of who I am. And if I'm like a person of faith, I cannot belittle the aspect that says that the human family is that a human family. So regardless of our differences, we can have the dignity of difference, accept the freedom, the conscious, the conscience of every person actually to play to display that person's humanity according to that person's understanding of life and choice, worldview, and so forth. And I think this is what really gave me the passion to understand the others. Regardless of the religion, I wanted to understand, where do people come from? What is it that they value? What is it, what is it that they cherish? What is it that they celebrate? Or what is it that they actually that they refuse to embrace? All that allows me to find spaces to commune with other human beings, regardless of their place of origins or belief and so forth. Now, this doesn't mean compromise, or that I do not have personal solid values. On the contrary, it means that I have to engage every human being, like in truth, basically, meaning in a space where we can be genuinely ourselves. And this is also connected to my understanding of the greatness of God. If really I believe God is great, that God is omniscient and omnipotent. God cannot be limited to our categories, because He created, in my, according to my belief, created the visible and invisible things. So there is nothing that escapes God's gaze, basically. So that means I do not have to confine Him, to limit Him, or to see other human beings as if they are out of the scope of God, regardless of the expression. I mean, of course, as long as this carries the values of peace building, you know, think about even the intuition of religious traditions by talking about peace, for example, Islam, salam. Why do, when we meet people, we say salam on you, right? So that means that we are actually wishing the integrity, the wholeness, unbroken dignity of that person. So if that is true, it has to be reflected in how we relate to people in every, like in other matters of life. This is not just a wishful thinking, okay, salam, peace be upon you, no, it is really a commitment to the well-being of other people. So so that means then, and if we look at religious traditions, and I spent many years thinking, studying, reflecting on comparative religions, not from the lenses of competition, but rather from unearthing what are the values that human beings promote. What is it that makes us human? So, and I wanted to commit my life to that, not just um, so that means that there's no competition, no basically comparison in a sense of putting a hierarchy, but rather looking at human beings as if we are dealing with the divine being. So that means that I have started, this is a journey, started to be careful how to deal with other people, meaning how to treat other people. Because if, just think about it, every religion has their holy sites or holy places, but sometimes we put more values in the holy places than in human beings. And this is something that I thought, it is just incongruous. How can we do that? Because the human beings are the greatest values according to revelations. whether we, regardless, whether we go to Christianity, whether we, even humans are compared to temples, for example. And the same thing could be, it's like, imagine if how we respect a mosque, we put the same value in respecting human beings. Or, so again, that redefined for me my path in this life, who I should be, someone who promotes those deep values. We not to evaluate human beings in terms of performances, in terms of wealth or position, like degree and so forth, but rather the very fact of human existence is a mystery that we cannot confine human beings at the same time. So this is why when I think about integrity, I think about the preservation of that sacred being space. If I say that I respect God, well, then that should lead me to value and respect that which God values and respect. Interesting, one of the commandments in the Bible that is ignored quite a bit is honor all people. Now this is explicitly said, but when we talk about uh, usually commandments and so forth, so on, we think, oh, just to do one's duty rather to please the divine being. But this is returned to us to say we in the one of the way to even worshiping, to adoring God, is to respect other people, to honor them, whether that person is rich or poor, doesn't make any difference. Or like our world today is locked into um, you know competition, etc., nationalism, and people uh, emphasizing their greatness, their worth, and so forth. But religious minds have no territorial lines because everybody is embraced because of basically the sacredness of the person's being, whether temple, mosque, as important as human beings. So I'm just thinking our world can be at a better place if we embrace that sense of integrity, of wholeness, that we participate, that we commit ourselves, and that we allow other people to enter a place of safety. Safety is actually the preservation of integrity, but sometimes it is just seen from a political lens. Safety, I protect my space. No, safety is enlarging one space in order to welcome, and the sense of hospitality, the sense of restoring other people's basically honor and dignity and basically peace. And I am not surprised that, for example, even when you look at the in international affairs, why would the first pillar of the UN be peace and security? Now notice, peace and security, uh, and then justice and development. And human beings have been showing this actually in any civilization. I mean, Muslims, a core value of Islam is adl, peace. I mean justice. So again, this is foundational justice, and justice, of course, this is not just about retributive justice. No, it could be distributive justice also, helping other people to be at a place where they are deeply restored in their humanity and live decently. So this is why justice is so important in Islam. And the same thing in the Judaism, we can find some similar values, justice. And actually, even in the book of Deuteronomy, when Moses established judges in Israel at the time, He say justice and justice alone you shall pursue. Again, but again, this is restorative justice, the dignity of people. And in the Christianity also, it is interesting just to remind Christians that also even Jesus in his teaching insisted, if your righteousness, so that goes beyond justice, righteousness, and the same word is found also in Islam, like taqwa, so those who fear God, muttaqin, these are the people who embrace God as, like as supreme in their lives, and that shows in the way they treat other people. So again, if we look at religions, and this is why I invested so much time in my life, in my journey actually, to learn what are these values to help me to be more human and humane in the way I deal with other people. So, Professor Karam, I am absolutely grateful that the Almighty Being has created space for you to focus now in leading in lead integrity, because to me it's like, wow, there is here my sister, I can call you that, who is involved right now in one of the most important values that our society needs today: integrity, not just in the political realm, but in the existential, economic, and you name it, all aspect of our living. So that's what I can really briefly say.
Thank you. And you're a partner in this process of lead integrity, and a very senior strategic advisor to the process and the journey and the institution, which we're trying to keep away from being an institution, but as a space, as a circle of learning and wisdom. And so we're very honored and thrilled that you are with us in this. And I wanted to ask you, you mentioned the dignity of difference, the integrity of difference. And I wondered if you could elaborate on that a little bit with connection to what we're seeing around us today in terms of many of our political leadership being very determined to somehow identify difference as dangerous or harmful or anything that's just not good. And I wondered if you can elaborate a little bit. What is the dignity of difference? What is that exactly? And how come we seem to be excelling in this day and age on seeing the different and the diverse as bad, as harmful, as things that need to be eliminated?
Let me create a space around this question, which is uh, one of the core problem, one of the core problems that leads us to the time that we're living right now is actually fear. Fear. Fear is driving the thoughts and energies of a lot of people. Now, this fear can take, like a survival mode, when it means to protect what one has, or this fear can be also used as an instrument in order to subjugate other people, you know so it is actually a very selfish enterprise. Human nature has some excellent things, I think, that was planted by the divine being, but at the same time you have here some deformation of those good energies, and driven by fear. And this can go so far as to be really nuisance. For example, there's actually a French philosopher, Michel Serres, and then even uh, like a Ukrainian thinker who talks about this idea of thanatocracy, meaning the use of thanatos in the Greek mythologies, is about death.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So krasi, the rule, the power of death. that is instrumentalizing death in order to keep people bound, subjected, subjugated, actually in slavery. And some politicians use this to impose basically their agendas on people groups, uh, and instrumentalizing human beings, which is, which is sacrilegious, because human beings belong to God. The whole world belongs to God. When it is used differently than what God intended, what happens is sacrilegious, is really violation of people's integrity, people's peace, wholeness, and health, actually, So I'm not going to here enter into name calling some politician, but wherever you see the rule of death, of fear, that's called thanatocracy. It's really pressing people, like as if, and this is done by the worst instinct of human beings. So, and the more people can be divided, isolated and oppressed and exploited, the more actually thanatocracy reigns, basically, So it is a fear. And I think this is where we should, and honestly, I myself pray that the people who are promoting these anti-values, these death values, that they be delivered from those, for the betterment of humanity. And so that's really, it is again, fear, right, of so it is existential insecurity that puts people to exploit others, to not respect others. I was talking about this recently in a context where, people are talking about racism and the way Africa is treated with their mineral resources. It's like, the continent is like, okay, a place where extraction can be done of what the world needs, and at the same time the dumping of toxic waste, but human beings are basically discarded, well, because of sickness, because of, you name it, and the terrible consequences of our choices in the Western world. Some African countries are living really a nightmare in terms of all the values of peace, of health, and so forth. So, uh, this is why recovering the deep value of integrity and solidarity,
Mm.
because there is one human family, but this is refused. Because if there is one human family, that means solidarity. That means, how can, for example, Christian pray by saying, Our Father, and at the same time exploiting part of the human family? It doesn't make sense. And I will remember that I was really taken back by that. But I visited the country of Ghana and visited a like a castle there that they use, that long time ago, for slavery.
Mm.
But what is unique about that place is there is a church like on top of a dungeon. So below the church were slaved, horrible suffering, and above, in the church, people were singing praises to God. you know so you wonder, how could this be, and that place still exists. I myself was born in Senegal, and I lived in an island called Gorée Island, and there too is a place, a door of no return. Think about it. People were shipped, and many of them died. And there is something like, in my culture of origin, Wolof,
Mm.
where some people would refuse to really to cross the ocean, so they would rather die than be enslaved. So, but when you see, and all those things were done by people who were saying that they were Christians, I mean, you wonder what is going on. Now, of course, they were not the only one, because you have all kinds of slaveries. You have what is called the Atlantic, okay? So, but you have the Saharian slavery, so from through North Africa, and you have the Oriental slavery through Mombasa, etc., etc. Even you have actually a trans-Pacific slavery, but anyway, again, this lack of human solidarity, the lack of, imagine if the slave owners or slave traders and whatever had accepted, embraced the idea that there's one humanity, every people's dignity, or is to be protected, respected, and every human being honored, we will be living a different world today. you know in this country, we are now living in America. Wherever you go, if stories be told, it's like, what would be said? Because this is stolen land at the same time. We think about it again, human greed and human disrespect of the humanity of other people, as a matter of fact, destroys our common humanity and make us all look bad, somehow. So,
But why do you think that we seem to be living through an era in which the prevalence of this culture of fear and of death, fear of death, seems to be so widespread? Why is it why is it that we have, in spite of all the laws, national, international, the legislation that we need, the values that I think the last 20, 25 years on the international level, we've celebrated values a lot more than we did for from the time previous. We've suddenly become aware of values and religion and faith. And how come all this is happening in spite of the so-called advancements in our legislative justice, norms of legislation and justice, celebration of faiths and traditions and beliefs and religions? How come we've reached the stage where we live in an era where so much fear reigns?
well, again, this is connected to human choice to be addicted to domination. Now, think about this. We have insisted more on domination. Like, think about all the words like dominance. It's like we have created, because even slavery or racism is the embrace of domination, of hierarchy. So you find that everywhere, like in tribalism, caste systems, and you name it. Human beings have chosen to shun solidarity, to shun the embrace of the humanity of all people group, that all need to be respected. But greed and pride, of course, and the appropriation, finally, of goods become more important than even the humanity of other people, who would be even transformed into goods. So there is no bound to basically use other people in whatever, just for self-interest, you name it. So we exploit everything, basically, because objects, material things, are more important than people, with spirits, I mean, created in the image of God, as some traditions will say, or as the Quran will say, we have bestowed dignity upon you. I mean, clearly, but people use even God, because what religion is saying is not embraced even by religious people sometimes. It is just instrumentalized for, again, self, because whenever a person has these categories of of hierarchy, dignity disappears. Why? Because there is no degree in dignity. Even a newborn baby, right, has infinite dignity. That's why the parents, serve that little totally dependent newborn being. So, but somehow we lose that out of sight when we grow older, because maybe we give in to fear, the instinct of survival. We need food, so how would we get it? So we can get it through decent means, regulation of society in a way that people will have, nobody will be missing. And religions have contributed greatly to that. But at the same time, even religions, when they give in to this addiction of domination, have created dominionism. So, and then people even use God to destroy God's creation. This is amazing. I mean, it's just incredible. uh, God is with us and not with others. So this is the reason why the dignity of difference is actually shunned. So because we say no, the difference is here to actually insist on the fact that we are the chosen ones, not the others. And it is interesting, like when I was studying some years ago, I looked a little more carefully on the call of Abraham or Ibrahim. What the text in Genesis was saying is all the families, so Abraham was chosen so that all the families of the earth will be blessed. The Hebrew said, Kol mishpachot ha'adam, all the seeds, literally, of the world will be blessed through you and through your descendant. But that after has been changed to you are the privileged ones. You have to subjugate the others. And this actually created an atmosphere completely opposite to what God wanted initially. Is the blessings that God intended to the whole human family is now hijacked, restricted to a people group. That's terrible. So again, this then after, and once you believe that you are the chosen one, then you will do anything to preserve that space of privilege, regardless of what it costs. You can decimate other people for fear. Again, the fear that maybe they will get at you someday and cancel your privileges. You see? So then people get entangled in a cycle of fear and death and crimes, you know. So I just want to be part, to summarize my journey, I want to be part of the better humanity, the one created with values divinely revealed through the prophets, throughout the ages, and nobody is excluded. We cannot hijack these values and privileges in order to discriminate against others, in order to emphasize others' subjugation. So it is an addiction, and I think religions by really living according to their destiny will be for the restoration of humanity, basically the way that the Creator intended us to live, to create this space of bounties, earth that He created for all of us, that nobody will be subjugated. I mean, think about it, all the crimes against humanity, women, children, and all these have the same root cause, the disregard. Uh, and this is basically, and I'm not being here a self righteous lecturing people about, what we should, but it is shameful what we do to fellow human beings. I mean, not just slavery, but think about the abductions of human beings, the reduction of human beings. It is just incredible. Children, there is no respect, in many ways. So I am totally grateful to God that people have decided And that's why I join you with, I'm honored to join Lead Integrity and to say, well, we want a different humanity, not one addicted to violence or violating the rights of others, but rather to peace, to healing, to building. It is interesting, actually, even sometime in some traditions. For example, the everything. I mean, most of the human values have been basically corrupted, transformed, and basically separated from their initial core meaning. For example, the idea of authority, you know, and lead integrity. When people use the word leadership, they're thinking about, someone again with power and dominating other people. But no, there is a different track. In fact, the word authority, and this is one of the reasons why I actually studied philology before and so forth, so to better understand, I mean, what is it, how are the values that we want to promote carried through even our language. So the word authority, as a matter of fact, comes from the one, I mean, at least from its current expression in English. Authority comes from augere, which means actually to cause to be fruitful. Someone with authority is a person who facilitates so that other people may be fruitful. But this is transferred, reinterpreted differently. Authority now means you dominate, you push people to do what you want. So, Asa, I'm grateful to be part of those who restore, at least attempt to. That's why I join, you in what you're doing to say, well, let us be here reformers, restorers of the intended meaning of what we of the values that we want people to embrace. So congratulations for lead integrity, because that's really part of the healing of our world, basically. Sorry, I took a long time to
Oh,
respond
this is
to a
rich. This is rich beyond
to,
beyond measure, and I'm very, very grateful to you. I think one of the questions confronting a lot of people of different ages in this time that we live in is a sense of powerlessness, that such uh, horrible things are taking place around us, amongst us, and there's this sense of powerlessness to do anything that can make the change. And when we speak about lead integrity, we speak about a space which brings together those committed to
Mhm,
a better version of our of life and leadership and service and sacrifice almost. But at the
mhm,
same time, this needs to be asked, this needs to be requested, this needs to be, here we are as servants, making our services available, but we need to be solicited, it needs to be asked, right? And if it's not, then it remains a very, delightful space of learning, but it isn't able to deliver what we feel we need to, which is the specialized care and advice, leadership, that we are each extraordinarily competent and able to deliver, but we need to be asked to do so, right? So I think there's a bit of a gap in terms of the sense of powerlessness and helplessness that many feel, the sense of frustration that many feel, and at the same time, the fact that because of the practices of dominion that you've articulated so well, um, if you're not the same, if you don't believe in those forms of authoritarianism, um, you will not be asked to serve. You will, in
mhm,
fact, be kicked out of your spaces of service,
mhm.
actively so. So, what do we do?
Well, first of all, refuse. I think I don't accept. We may feel, which is real, powerlessness. I mean, what can we do? we can ask those questions, but not embracing, like this, the feeling that we can do nothing. In fact, we can. And this is why we should not despair or lose hope. And, there are still spaces in any society to have a voice. And honestly, this is personally also what engaged me even at the UN level, and other spaces open to continue to really militate for human dignity, militate for justice. I mean, again, uh, civil society is a space where, I mean, people still vote. And I think, we can still share values so that those who vote accordingly, I mean, according to the values of life, not death, not fear, but, like human and humane values. So, and this is why, if you have like started lead integrity, it is like one brick to this global construction to actually make a difference, to say we have not despaired to the point of letting our hands fall limp. We will still act and do something. And that is why I personally am committed to support spaces like lead integrity, and to say, well, and people in civil societies and so forth uh, can have an impact on governments, right? So through their votes, and so this can create a ripple effect to actually create more and more influence. Yes, sometimes people can feel they are defeated, but not so. Human ingenuity, human creativity is also a reality. What we are talking about at a bigger level is actually uh, encounters with evil, because whatever diminish human dignity, human prosperity, human life, is actually part of a coalition of evil. But I am grateful. I meet every day people who are committed to say we want to work for good and promote human well-being at any level possible. And we should this way, and that is why I respected and still do everything that you are doing, even at the UN, at the space of the UN, in order to encourage other people to be committed to the prevalence of good, not evil. So, but sometime, and I must say, and it may be discouraging to see that even in religious spheres, you find people who are committed to promoting evil instead of good. But there too, we should not despair, but be encouraged that we will always find people, young and older people, who actually are committed to make a difference for the good. So, again, these are words of encouragement, regardless of the prevalence of fear and death and evil. These are forces that will be conquered. And that's where my hope is personally. And I would like to spend every breath of my life to do every day something that will contribute to the promotion of the good for all, without distinction, without discrimination, the in deep solidarity to our common humanity, basically.
Well, that is a delightful note and a very profound note on which to end this formal interview on the integrity of leadership. Thank you very much, Reverend Dr. Ganoune Diop, for joining us and for sharing such profound wisdom with us. It is extraordinarily hard to match any of your very informed and learned ways of thinking, and certainly almost impossible to give proper thanks. But
But
you,
allow me to say, without interrupting you, to remind you how you started. You wanted me to talk about journey. So this is part of the journey, that we are all on. I don't have any pretension or claims or whatever, but I'm committed to be part of the solution, basically, for the whole human family. Of course, in my sphere of influence or actions, whatever I can do. And you can always count on my encouragement and support for what you are building for a better humanity. Thank you so much, Dr. Karam.
Very much. Thank you very much.